We want to think about what's being talked about, and we want to think about how this song, because of what it's talking about, this particular marriage, how it's going to help us, not only emotionally affect us. We think about how it helps us today, thinking about it, how it brings happiness, how it's going to stir our hearts, but also we think about the future promises. So let's do this. Turn in your Bibles to the book of Psalms, and we'll look at Psalm chapter 45. And we're going to look at verse 1 to start with, but first we look at that superscription, and it sets the stage of what type of writing this is. And notice it's a song of love. Interesting. So let's read that first verse then. It says, "My heart is stirred by something good. I say, my song is about a king. May my tongue be the stylus of a skilled copyist." So we take a look here, and we're thinking about what this song is about. Well, it's about a king. And then, who is this king? Would be the next question that would come to mind. Take a look at verse 2 with me. Talking about this particular king, he says, "You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Gracious speech flows from your lips. That is why God has blessed you forever." So, who is this individual? Who has gracious speech that flows from the lips? Who has been blessed by God forever? Well, one cross-reference at Luke, the 4th chapter, in verse 22, it actually describes Jesus Christ. It says how the crowds were amazed because of the gracious words that were coming out of his mouth. In fact, one officer at John, the 7th chapter, verse 46, says, speaking about spoken like this. Yes, when people heard the words coming out of Jesus' mouth, what did it do to them? We know that they were stirred by something good, as 45 verse 1 highlights. So we know that Jesus is the groom in this particular case. So let's continue on. Who is the bride? Take a look at the 45th chapter of the book of Psalm 45, and let's look at verses 13 and 14. See if we get any hints. It says, "Inside the palace, the king's daughter is absolutely magnificent. Her clothing is adorned with gold. She will be brought to the king in richly woven garments. The virgin companions following her are brought in before you." What hints do we get about who the bride might be? Because there's two participants here. Well, first we notice in verse 13, this is the king's daughter. Now, can that be the same king that we just talked about, Jesus? Well, no, that wouldn't make any sense to be marrying his own daughter, so to speak. So who is it then? Well, the Bible describes Jehovah God as being the king of eternity. So this king being described here in verse 13 would be none other than Jehovah God. So who would be the daughter, though? Well, Romans, the 8th chapter, verses 15 through 17, it speaks of the 144,000, or these anointed Christians. They're described as the children of Jehovah. In fact, they're described as the adopted children of Jehovah. So the king's adoptive daughter, then, is this 144,000. I forgot to talk to you guys earlier. Oh, man, you guys are the best. What's being depicted here now that we see, that we just read 13 and 14? Well, here we have the daughter. Obviously, we know which one that would be. And she's being brought into this marriage with this king, the most handsome, one with gracious words, blessed by Jehovah forever. And of course, this is taking place as depicted there. The earth would be below us. So this is taking place up in heaven. Now, since it takes place in heaven, this marriage arrangement, it's appropriate that it's described, everything about this wedding would be amazing, would be beautiful. We think of the daughter. It says clothing of gold, richly woven garments. It speaks of her as absolutely magnificent. Other scriptures in Revelation 21:2 goes on to describe the bride as a new Jerusalem, describing her as a city, radiant, like the most precious of stones, jasper stone, shining crystal clear. Again, stunning. So we know who the participants are as we take a look at the image. When is the wedding going to take place? Well, the song continues. We can actually go back to chapter 45 and verses 3 and 4. Chapter 45 and verses 3 and 4. Notice it says, "Strap your sword on your side, O mighty one, in your dignity and your splendor. And in your splendor go on to victory. Ride in the cause of truth and humility and righteousness. And your right hand will accomplish all inspiring things." What hint do we have of when this wedding is going to take place? What are these verses describing? Well, warfare. So you don't really have a wedding in the middle of warfare, do you? No. So in verse 3, we see Jesus is strapping on the sword. In verse 4, he's riding in the cause of truth, humility, and righteousness. He's riding for Jehovah's righteous standards. Jesus is going to wage war before this wedding takes place. Jehovah who oppose Jehovah's truth and his righteousness. Now we know this started back in 1914 when Satan was ousted from heaven. Very shortly, we know that false religion, those that promote false truths about Jehovah and his righteousness, they're going to be done away with. And then at some point very soon, the 144,000 all will be gathered together in heaven just before the war, as the scriptures mention in the Bible, is Armageddon. This is the great day of God, the Almighty. So Jesus will defend the greatest truth that must be defended, that of Jehovah's universal sovereignty. So when does the wedding take place? Well, just like a normal wedding, right before the wedding can take place, you're going to go out to the venue that you've chosen, that you spent a lot of time preparing. You're going to clean it up. You're going to wipe it down. If there's any trash around, you're going to take it away. If there was anybody just hanging around that shouldn't be part of that, they're going to have to leave, aren't they? The same is true for this wedding. So just after Armageddon, and this marriage of the Lamb will finally take place now that all of God's enemies will have been removed. Verse 4 there in chapter 45, it talks about this would be accomplished by awe-inspiring things. Well, what actions will inspire awe? We don't really know every detail, do we? But what we do know is that these actions will strike terror into the hearts of those inhabitants of the earth who have not heeded the divine warning to submit to Jehovah's rulership. So we've talked about the participants. When, what are the results of this marriage? Take a look at Psalms 46, and we'll take a look at the 8 through 10. So Psalm 46, 8 through 10. And here it says, "Come and witness the activities of Jehovah, how he has done astonishing things on earth. He is bringing an end to the wars throughout the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the military wagons with fire. Give in and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted." Best wedding ever. That's the results. No more war. This will be the best wedding ever, not just for those that are absolutely participating in the wedding, but for everybody that's getting to view the wedding, watch the wedding, watch the results of the wedding. Warfare will be no more. So what's the ultimate conclusion for us? Look back at chapter 45 and look at verse 1 one more time. The psalmist describes how he feels about this marriage in this song. You notice he talks about something good that was able to touch his heart when he was thinking about this. It was so good that it caused him to be stirred. Now that Hebrew verb translated there is stirred, originally means to bubble up or to boil. So this made the psalmist's heart boil over with enthusiasm. It made his tongue become just like that stylus of a skilled copyist. He was excited to tell everybody about the wedding, the marriage, the participants, and the good news of the kingdom and what it will result. So for us, is our heart stirred by the kingdom message? Do we preach the kingdom message with zeal? May we always, just like this psalmist, we too have this song about a king, our King, Jesus Christ. May our tongue be like that stylist of a skilled copyist as we make extensive use of God's written word in our preaching life.